Okay. We call this meeting 2 p.m., February 9th. Rachel Rockwell versus Ted Cook.
I cannot hear anybody.
You cannot hear?
Okay, wait. Okay, I think I can hear you now.
Okay. We have 2 citizens in the room. Please identify yourselves.
I'm Debbie Ford.
Hold on.
That's fine. Hang on a second.
Can we have a roll call, please?
Chairman Acosta,
Here.
Member Greg Frieders,
Here.
and Member Heidi Lendy. Here.
Okay, we're here to call the complaint.
Can you give me just a second? I'm having some difficulty really kind of hearing everybody well. My husband's attempting to put in a different speaker. Can you just give me 1 second?
Sure.
Can you say something?
Testing. 1, 2, 3.
No. Can you try it now?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. 1, 2, 3.
Okay. I don't think we're going to be able to figure this out. I can hear everybody, but if everybody can kind of talk a little loud. He's trying to work today, so I had to use a different setup than what I did last time. So you guys can hear me fine, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. You guys are all really kind of low. So just if you could please just speak, really into your microphone or something. I don't know what the deal is.
Okay.
I appreciate it. I can't hear anything at all now.
Yeah, there's something going on.
Okay, I have no sound, so you'll have to give me just another second.
Oh, I'm trying to get it set up. I know. Let me just get it set up real quick.
It looks like he's talking. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I still can't hear any of you, so just give me another second. I'm not very good with technology, so my husband is trying to get this going, but I don't know what the deal is.
Try it now.
Hello?
Hello?
Nothing. Well, where was it before?
I'm trying to figure out where to switch.
Okay, maybe I should just call in
Here,
on the.
try now.
Okay. Hello?
Hello? We hear you good.
No, they're not saying anything.
Yes, he is speaking. Mike is speaking.
Oh, I can't hear him.
Hello? Testing.
All right, should we just call in on the phone at this point, hon?
You might want to, because I have no.
Rachel, you can call in using the phone number and access code in the email that you received that
All right,
was your
we're gonna
link
try
to this
call in.
webinar.
Alice, I'm guessing she probably didn't hear you.
That is true. I will send her the email again. Didn't think about that.
I know, I saw that.
I'm leaving here at 2:45. I think it's
Good. It's not my smoke detector. Mm.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so I apologize. Thank you for your patience.
Okay, for call of complaint, Rockwell versus Cook.
Sure, and if I may provide just a brief overview to the committee as to how typically these proceedings would proceed in the order in which the parties would speak. Because there has been a motion to dismiss filed in this case, first we would hear that motion. So they would be allowed to make their argument for the motion to dismiss, and Mrs. Rockwell would have the opportunity to respond to that, and then Mr. Cook would have the final reply to that motion, at which time the commission would deliberate, and then if they decide to grant the motion to dismiss, the hearing is over, and I would be directed to draft a decision or an order to that effect. If the committee or commission decides not to grant the motion to dismiss, then we would proceed to the case in chief, at which time Mrs. Rockwell would proceed by making her arguments. Mr. Cook would have the opportunity to respond, and then Mrs. Rockwell would have the final say. And I do want to note at the outset that there had been a question about witnesses, and ultimately it is within the discretion of the commission as to whether or not they want to call witnesses or who to allow. I would just advise that if the commission does elect to grant calling witnesses, if we get to that point, that we take time to adjourn to notify the witnesses in writing that they're being requested to testify. So nobody should be expected to testify today because the commission has not had the opportunity to rule on that issue. So we would then go into a recess to notify any witnesses and then reconvene the hearing.
Okay.
So at this time, yes, you'd want to move on or you would want to call the motion to dismiss first.
Okay, Ted?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is Jeffrey A. Meyer, M-E-Y-E-R of Klein, Stoddard, Buck, and Lewis, attorney appearing on behalf of the respondent, Mr. Cook. I did, in fact, file a motion to dismiss the complaint in this matter. Actually, we filed a motion to dismiss the amended complaint. I never actually saw the original complaint. I did, I think, see maybe a draft of it or something at some point. But my understanding is that we're proceeding, or this committee is proceeding on Ms. Rockwell's amended complaint. I filed a motion to dismiss that prior to the initial hearing of this commission. I then subsequently filed an amended motion, and I apologize for the necessity of filing the amended motion. Originally, when I reviewed the village's ordinances, I was not able to find anywhere codified in the village's code its ethics ordinance. That was subsequently provided to me. I understand that the ordinance is 2004-0504A, and that's in the process of being codified and incorporated into the village code. So I filed an amended motion based upon then having received a copy of the village's ethics ordinance. It doesn't really change the sum and substance of the motion we filed, though. What the village's ethics ordinance appears to do is by and large, and pursuant to the directive in the state statute, incorporate in a couple of state laws concerning prohibited political activity and concerning a gift ban. The gist of the ordinance here as it relates to, well, not just the gist, the nuts and bolts of the ordinance as it relates to prohibited political activity, it does two things. One, it expressly prohibits an employee. It says an employee shall not intentionally perform any prohibited political activity during any compensated time. Employee is defined in the act. Mr. Cook is not an employee of the village. He is an official or an officer of the village as a member of the village board. Subsection, it's kind of confusingly marked as subsection B of section 2, but subsection B, which appears first under section 2, is facially inapplicable to Mr. Cook because he's not an employee. If you read through the rest of the subsections in section 2 of the village's ordinance here, the only one that applies to officers or officials is what's marked as subsection C. It says that at no time shall any officer or any official, supervisor or employee intentionally misappropriate the services of any employee by requiring that employee to perform any prohibited political activity, 1, as part of the employees, 2, as a condition of employment, or 3, during any compensated time off, such as vacation, personal, or compensatory time off. If you read the complaint here, the amended complaint here, nowhere is the complainant, Ms. Rockwell, alleging that Mr. Cook did any of those things. She's saying that he himself engaged in prohibited political activity. Now let's, for the purposes of the motion, let's just accept that as true for a moment. Even if Mr. Cook was engaging in, quote, prohibited political activity, that doesn't violate this provision of the ethics ordinance because he wasn't encouraging an employee to engage in the prohibited political activity. Moreover, in terms of what's defined as prohibited political activity, maybe it's bad choice of words here because it's not really prohibited unless it is prohibited. What I mean by that is that the statute here or the ordinance here describes certain political activity, including, for example, preparing for, organizing, or participating in any political meeting, political rally, political demonstration, or other political event. And that's what Ms. Rockwell cites to. She says, well, see, it says this is prohibited political activity, and that's what Mr. Cook was doing. Well, just because it's defined as, quote, prohibited political activity doesn't mean it's prohibited by the ordinance. In fact, if you read the ordinance, it says that prohibited political activity is really only prohibited if it's done by an employee during compensated time. Ms. Rockwell nowhere makes any allegations about this being done by Mr. Cook during any compensated time, even if he is deemed to be an employee, which I don't think is appropriate. This wasn't something Mr. Cook allegedly did during a board meeting while he was traveling for the village, while he was attending some event paid for by the village. This isn't during any sort of compensated time. Even if you accept what she's alleged is true, that he encouraged somebody to review a political opponent's nominating petition papers, and he had requested a copy of those papers, as any member of the public is entitled to do, and reviewed them himself, and then asked somebody else to file an objection. Well, hey, look, even if that's political activity, it's certainly not prohibited, and it's certainly not done by an employee during compensated time. I mean, there is just no way to construe what Ms. Rockwell has alleged here in her amended complaint as being something that is defined by this ordinance as prohibited political activity that violates its terms. It just doesn't. The statute is just facially inapplicable to the conduct that Ms. Rockwell alleges Mr. Cook has engaged in. In terms of the other part of the village's ordinance, the gift ban, this is section 4, even though it's the third section in the ordinance. It says, quote, except as otherwise provided in this article, no officer or employee shall intentionally solicit or accept any gift from any prohibited source or in violation of any federal or state statute, rule, or regulation, or an ordinance or resolution of the village of Sugar Grove. Reading Ms. Rockwell's complaint as broadly as you can and construing, any inferences that can be drawn in favor of the non-movement here. The only thing that she alleges Mr. Cook has received is a copy of the nominating petition papers that she filed to run for village board. And again, those are a public record. That's not a gift. That's not anything of value. It's a public record. Anybody is entitled under the law to come in and ask for a copy of that, and the village is required to give it to them. There is nothing alleged here that could possibly in any way constitute a gift under this ordinance. So for all of those reasons, there is not even a facial claim stated here by Ms. Rockwell against Mr. Cook. There's just none. Even if you construe everything in the light most favorable to her, she hasn't stated a prima facie claim for a violation of the village's ordinances. This commission has only the authority to consider violations of the law as it exists today. Even if Ms. Rockwell thinks, that politics is bad politics and bad politics is unethical, it violates some, precept of 12 rules of ethics that don't appear anywhere, by the way, in the ordinance. They're just her ideas of what is or is not ethical. Even if this commission wants to accept that that's ethics, that's the measure of what should be deemed ethical in our community, it's not what's in this ordinance. it's not what this commission is charged to determine whether or not there has been a violation of, nor can this commission consider that. The commission can only consider what's in the four corners of the ordinance before you, and she's alleged nothing that violates its terms. This complaint should be dismissed on its face with prejudice. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel Rockwell, please.
Yep. Hi. Mr. Myers, were you also Mr. Shomas's attorney?
Mr. Chairman, I am not a witness, and I am not going to stand for this today. This was
Okay.
something
Okay.
that was
So
attempted
that's
before.
fine. Okay.
This
It's
is
a
not
simple.
order.
Listen. It's not. I'm not out of anything. It's a simple question. Okay. So you made a couple of really good points in your response to my complaint. We kind of went over this last week, where I didn't feel that there was going to be the breach of public trust and that protecting the citizens, that the village had not done their job, that the attorneys for the village had not done their job regarding making some additions to the already existing ordinance. Laura had stated last week that she felt that they have gone above and beyond the village within the ordinance to protect its citizens, and it was my right to continue to move forward. And I told everybody last week that I didn't think there was much to look at, but that I would go ahead and do that, and I would allow the committee to go ahead and make their final determination today. And I do believe that Mr. Myers' request will be granted based on what was already discussed last week. And what was actually discussed last week was, in fact, what we're discussing again this week. He solidifies the fact that the village is basically not, they have not adopted any ordinances that protect its citizens. There's literally basically nothing besides the gift ban, which is what I stated last week. This week, I tried to amend. I went back and I looked as Laura requested. Yes, it does state employees. When there's literally nothing in here besides one ordinance, you're squeezing in whatever you can in order to be heard. So due process for a citizen of the community is able to move forward. There is nothing for breach of public trust for any of its citizens, and there's also nothing for inappropriate behavior. If a sitting elected official did something inappropriate behavior-wise in conduct that was not criminal, nobody could be heard today either. So there's literally nothing in this ordinance to protect its citizens outside of gifts, outside of land, outside of job opportunities. And while Ms. Laura said last week that they've gone above and beyond, one ordinance in here that he specifically cites at 2C, where not an employee but an elected official, I'm looking for, as a citizen, a lot more than one to be going above and beyond. So as far as what he speaks about, Mr. Cook took his right to hire an attorney, which is totally fine. I did not. I am here as a pro se. I've been here as a pro se, and he didn't have to have an attorney today. If all of number 2 of what the respondent is claiming is accurate, Mr. Cook could have came here today and said, listen, I don't really care about the ordinance. I'm here to clear my name. I want my side of the story, Mr. Shomas' side of the story, to be heard. And the ethics committee would have had the opportunity to make their decision. It's the ethics committee's decision. It's not my decision. It's not Mr. Myers' decision. In due process, all citizens should have the right, should have the ability to be protected within the law to bring such a complaint about breach of trust to its citizens in regards to a sitting elected official, hear the facts from both sides, and let the citizens that are appointed to determine the end result of the case. Because there is nothing within this ordinance, I am unable to provide something that I actually had in my original complaint. If it was my original complaint, this would be heard. When it speaks to legislatures and breach of public trust and it becoming unbecoming behavior. I was very much looking forward to the differences between dirty politics and ethics. There really isn't a difference unless you're involved in politics. To average citizens, we're tired of dirty politics having no ethics. And that's where all of this goes wrong. You have an attorney and you have politicians that are going to defend that all day, every day, while the rest of us citizens sit back and nothing is ever changed, nothing is ever done because of exactly this. It's never even brought in front of people to be heard. It's squashed immediately. Nobody's done their due diligence. And so here we are. I don't have anything else to say outside of I really hope that it's a learning situation. I have not made a big deal about this because I'm running for village trustee. There's a lot to be fixed within the village. Shawn Michaels been president for 22 years. Now I'm going to defend him. He has not wanted this case to be heard. That's my opinion based on his actions. He circumvented his own ordinance. And it's the village's attorney's job to make sure that they bring to the attention to the trustees and to the president of different things that should be buttoned up a little bit tighter. And it does not appear, based on looking at this ordinance, that any of that has ever been done. In the 22 years that Shawn Michaels been president, this has not been buttoned up for his citizens. And I'm just super, super disappointed. I really am. But the good news is I think that this will be rectified in the future. And unfortunately, it had to happen under my name, and that's fine. I hope it never happens again. But if it does, I truly believe in the citizens' right to be able to be heard and for their time in court to be able to be heard and determined within the committee whether they had a legitimate cause of action or not. Thank you for taking the time to listen and to read. This has gone on far too long, and there's nothing in the ordinance to protect its citizens. So I don't disagree, I hate to say, with Mr. Meyer.
Okay, thank you.
Even though I would love for it to be heard, it's based on law, I can't see how it can be.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Meyer?
The petitioner asked for an opportunity to file a claim and have an opportunity to be heard, and she's had that. There's no due process deprivation here. She's had every opportunity to file a claim, have it brought, and for this commission to determine whether or not there's any facial merit to it, then that is due process. Contrary to her assertions, no due process has been circumvented here. The village has gone above and beyond what is facially required, I think, under the state statute, and has, contrary to her argument, done a lot to protect its residents. This ordinance is comprehensive. It bans and prohibits and makes unethical all kinds of inappropriate conduct, all the stuff that Illinois has sometimes been notorious for people using their own employees in their offices to go out and do their reelection work, for example. That's all prohibited here. What the petitioner complains about, though, isn't that. There's no criminal activity here. There's no misappropriation of funds. There's no, quote, breach of the public trust. No trust that was placed in anyone, including Mr. Cook, as a public official, has been breached here. This act defines comprehensively what is and is not the public trust. None of it's been breached. Most tellingly, though, you have really, back to the main point, there's a concession here. The petitioner herself does not contest that she states no facial claim against Mr. Cook. This is patently a meritless claim under this ordinance and should be stricken as such. We ask the motion be dismissed be granted. Thank you.
Thank you. Discussion from commission? Do I have a motion? We have a motion to dismiss.
I second that motion.
Okay, it's been first and second. Although
I wasn't able to hear what the motion was. I apologize. Could somebody repeat that?
a motion to dismiss the complaint.
I will
So,
second.
Laura, would it be a motion to grant the motion to dismiss? Or
Yes.
you move to grant the motion to dismiss? Okay.
That's what I was
And,
trying to clarify.
okay. And was that Mr. Frieders or was that Ms. Lindy?
Yes, ask for the motion.
I will ask for the motion if I need to ask for the motion. So.
I'm going to go with Heidi on the first and Greg on the second.
Okay.
Okay. So on the motion to grant the motion to dismiss, Heidi Lindy. Aye. Greg Frieders.
Aye.
And Chairman Acosta.
Aye.
Okay, so at this time then, I would request that the commission grant me time to draft a written decision at which you would adopt at a later date, and that can be any time. It would just, you would need to call to order, review the actual order and make sure it reflects your decision, and then just approve that in open session.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if there's a date or time that works for the commission, but it could be ready as soon as tomorrow.
How about next Tuesday? Our Tuesdays are working good.
Tuesday, same time.
That's fine.
I am unavailable next Tuesday at 2 p.m. I have a pretrial conference at that point in time. I mean, I don't probably need to be present unless there's some question or concern that needs to be addressed. But if there's any potential need for me to be present, I would have a conflict at that time.
Laura, what do you think?
Well, that's up to council. It would just be strictly a meeting to adopt what the commission just voted on now. So there wouldn't be any other, matters that would come up. It would just be making sure that the decision reflected the deliberation today.
And normally, council, I would have no problem with that. Given though some of the prior proceedings and related proceedings, I have some concern about not having a presence for my client at any proceeding related to these matters. So, if at all possible, I guess respectfully look at another available time.
How about Monday at 2 o'clock?
Just the building is closed on, staff has the day off on President's Day, the 15th. So.
Friday, 2 o'clock?
Friday, 2 o'clock?
Friday the 12th?
Yes.
Or Friday the 12th?
Yes.
I'm available Friday the 12th at 2 o'clock.
Okay. Is that good for everybody?
Okay, so we would just then need a motion to adjourn until Friday the 12th at 2.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
Oh, and I'm sorry, public participation prior to adjourn.
Yeah. Identify yourself.
Come over here. My name is Debbie Shapiro.
You guys can meet.
So I came here because of a news article I saw in the Daily Herald. The article caught my eye when I read, Cook examined Rockwell's nominating petitions and suggested Chavez, who is one of his neighbors, to challenge the position. That right there didn't seem right to me. Why was her petition examined? How many were there? Were all of them examined? And why did Cook give it to his neighbor and not challenge it himself? I don't know if it's because of the recent presidential election, but I do think a lot of people who have never followed politics before is starting to now, including myself. When I read that article, I felt really bad for Ms. Rockwell. To me, this didn't seem right. Between kicking Rockwell off and dropping off the ballot, Mr. Cook elected that there were 3 open positions and 3 people on the ballot. I don't know who has access to examine the ballot. I think I kind of heard that it's public information. I can keep it myself. But I think this is opening a whole can of worms for our future elections. I would think that a current trustee would mentor others and not try to push them off the ballot. In local elections, I think it's even more important to maintain a sense of respect at all times. Everyone is benefiting from the same community services. You should leave it for the people to decide. I am a friend of Ms. Rockwell's, and I'm not hiding that. But she's also not out there telling anybody about the health initiative. If she was, there'd be a lot more to her. I found out last Tuesday from a coworker and barely made it here in time to the meeting. I've lived here for 18 years and I love our small town and all of our neighbors. I attended a handful of village meetings. There was like a TIF meeting, the Dome by the Middle School, and the Crown Project. I have volunteered a lot in the community and through many different avenues, so I can appreciate the work that the trustees have put in here. From what I understand, it seems like the citizens are not covered as well as maybe they should be. And I'm not saying this is the village's fault, but maybe indirectly. I think it's the attorneys that should have provided guidance and made sure this area was protected for us from these type of issues. As we're all aware, it is an election year, and I'm hoping that moving forward with the president and trustees, whomever they will be, they'll review our ethics ordinance and hopefully provide an update that would include breach of public trust. Lastly, I would like to add that even though Mr. Cook provided the information to Mr. Shamus, it was Mr. Shamus who did something with it. So thank you, Mr. Shamus, for opening up Sugar Grove to dirty politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
You'll have to,
No one else to speak. Can I get a motion to adjourn until
I would like to say
Friday?
on the record, if that's okay.
Laura's talking. Laura's talking. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I would just like to clarify what the role of the village attorney is, just to prevent any misconceptions as to what our job is. We work for the board and we do not create policy. We review the law and make sure that the village is in compliance with what the legal requirements are, but we have never been directed to comb through village ordinances or spend that amount of time examining each and every portion of the village code to determine what could be better. That's just simply not our job. If so directed by the village board, it would be something that, you know, we would happily take on and make recommendations regarding, but it has never been the job of the village attorney to make policy. And I just do want to make that clear for the record. And again, you know, happily, if directed to do so, that is something we could take on, but that is not within the scope of how we act. We advise and we keep the board apprised of the current law. But again, we are not the policymakers.
So hopefully
And-
after 22 years, hopefully Sean brings this to the attention of the trustees immediately. After 22 years, hopefully this is brought to light the deficit.
And Chairman Acosta, I just want to, there are some attendees who are online, and for the four, I just want to say, if you did want to speak during public comment, you can use the raise your hand feature, and I would see it. I just didn't want to miss any or not give anyone the chance to do that. So if you want to speak, if you could use that raise hand feature now. I don't see anyone, so I think we're good on the online attendees.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And we want the motion to reflect the adjournment until Friday at 2 p.m.
Adjourn till Friday at 2 p.m. I'll make a motion for that.
I'll second it.
Oh, cool. All right, man.
I think you're muted, Allison.
Sorry, fat fingers. On the motion to adjourn to February 12th at 2 p.m., Greg Frieders,
Aye.
Heidi Lendy,
Aye.
Chairman Acosta.
Aye.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.